Okay, time for number 36. Today's October 30th, 2021. It's a Saturday. Nice chilly morning. So I want to keep talking about homophobia, what I started talking about yesterday. I'm going to continue trying to make the case for it. But before I do that, I just wanted to talk about some of the comments I read on the video yesterday. First of all, when I put these videos out, the ones that I know are going to be controversial, the ones that I know will garner a negative reaction from certain crowds, it really stresses me out. I hit that publish button, and then I spend the next number of hours in just a great deal of stress, like a surprising amount of stress, even to me. And it's hard for me to understand exactly why I feel that way. Because, I am doing this, like, intentionally. I do know what I'm saying is controversial. And like I've been saying, part of the reason I made this channel was to say the things that other people aren't going to say and take the stances other people aren't going to take. I don't see anybody else out there taking an anti-gay stance, and so I just want to make the argument from that side. I want to explore these subjects, and I know that it can get me in trouble, but it still stresses me out a lot. So I just wanted to say that. I know these things, these videos, the comments and the reactions so far have been pretty good. I have noticed that I'll put the video up and then I'll lose subscribers immediately, and then I'll gain subscribers back, so it's like I have a rotating door of subscribers apparently, which again is not something that I'm overly concerned about, but I see that as part of the reaction. Like, if I put up a video titled "An Argument for Homophobia" and then I lose a subscriber, I know that that's part of a negative reaction, and that causes me stress. I can't help it. And I know that these videos are sitting here like time bombs now, just waiting to get me in trouble in the future at any time. Much like similar to the tweet that I put out that said trans women are not women, which just sat there for a while doing nothing, and then suddenly, like days later, it got me in huge trouble. So I know that, like, some employer, I'm gonna go apply for a job, they're gonna find this YouTube channel and be like, yo, we cannot hire you. Which is whatever, that's the risk I'm taking by doing this, I still feel compelled to do this. So anyway, I read some of the comments, and Jonathan said that I take too long to get to my point. I'm too long-winded. Apparently 43 minutes was too long to talk about homophobia. I understand, but I have to say that, I don't have a plan when I make these videos. I don't go in with words that I know I'm going to say. I just turn the camera on, and then I just say what comes to my mind in the order that it comes to my mind. And it might take me a long time to get to a point, I guess, but it's like I'm not reading off a script. I can't move the point closer to the beginning because I don't know what the point is until I get there. Maybe there is no point sometimes. And when I'm talking about things that are very sensitive, I have to make sure to approach the subject slowly, to go around it a little bit first, maybe spiral my way into it towards the middle. I have to cover my bases. When I'm talking about stuff that's this sensitive, I have to make sure that I'm explaining myself in enough detail that there isn't, people, like I keep saying, people are going to accuse me of ignorance no matter what, but I would like to avoid that as much as possible. I'd like to express my thought process well enough that people will understand how I arrived there. So anyway, I will try to go faster today, but I can't make any guarantees. And then so another thing that I read in the comment section was a definition of homophobia, or an explanation of it, that it didn't even occur to me yesterday, which was the kind of homophobia that comes from the insecurity of heterosexual men, where a heterosexual guy who I guess is insecure about his feelings will beat up a gay dude to prove that he's straight, which is, I didn't even think about that yesterday, and I guess that is something that happens. Um, but to me, that's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about, I mean, I guess that is homophobic, but I was trying to get at something deeper here. Like, why? This occurred to me yesterday after I made the video. Why is there a line in the Bible that says that two guys can't sleep together, right? And I'm sure that similar rules appear in other religions. Like ancient cultures probably have rules against this. I'm trying to get at this idea of like, why is this a theme across all of history? And I don't think it's reasonable to say that there are people who wrote the Bible were insecure about how straight they were, and so they had to put a rule in the Bible to make a rule against it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I think that there's something deeper going on here. Something way deeper. It has more to do with Chesterton's fence. It has more to do with, there's a rule that's in place, and I don't think we understand why it's there. And I think the LGBT movement, like part of the reason I'm making this video is because LGBT is so powerful today, and nobody argues against it because you just get destroyed. And so I feel some sort of responsibility. I feel like I need to be the guy to be like, wait a second, maybe this whole acceptance movement isn't quite as well-intentioned, you know, as, or it, not well-intentioned. I guess you could argue that it is well-intentioned, but maybe it's not so well thought out. It's not as simple as accept all sexual orientations, you know? Maybe there's a reason society hasn't been accepting of all orientations. There may have been a very good reason for it, and that's what I was getting at yesterday. Is this, what is that reason? Why is there a rule in the Bible against it? Why has there been an anti-gay sentiment throughout most of human culture? You know? Because if you just think about it if you try to think about it objectively, it doesn't really seem to make sense. And if you think about it from an evolutionary angle, which is where I usually come from, if you're thinking about like group selection across human cultures, why would if you have two tribes that are competing with each other for resources and space, and one of them has an anti-gay rule and the other one doesn't, you would assume, first of all, that the occurrence of gayness in both groups would be the same. And from what I understand, it's like 5 to 10%. Something like that is like the number of natural-born homosexual people in any population, any given population. It seems to be something that occurs naturally, you know, it's not. And since it occurs naturally, you would assume that evolutionary pressure would have taken it into account, right? So it's funny that people call it like a defect, or people call it like a mistake, because if that was true, you'd think that it would have been weeded out of the population. Because I mean, it is true that a gay man can't reproduce, right? Because they would have to have sex with a vagina. I mean, they can reproduce, but it's like unlikely, you know? So how would evolution select for that? And then so my answer to that, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but this is how I would assume that an evolutionary biologist would answer this. They would say that on a population level, it's possible that you would have something like gay men or lesbians exist to kind of fill in the gaps for so how do I say this carefully? So like, let's assume there's a war, the two tribes battle each other, and you lose like 25% of your men or something, or like 10% of them. You would suddenly have fewer men in your population, which would mean if you had the kind of cultural setup where you had pair bonding between two people, suddenly there wouldn't be enough men to go around. So you could either do like a polyamorous thing where one guy sleeps with multiple women or has like multiple wives. But it's also possible that, like, maybe this is why lesbians exist, you know, is to, you know, there's not enough men to go around, so then two women hook up, they become parents to a child, right? And on a group level, this would make sense evolutionarily speaking. I mean, this is how I think about it. It's harder for me to explain gay men, because I can't think of a lot of situations where you'd lose a large chunk of your women, but it's possible that there's too many men, and then there's not enough women, and so the men have to pair together, and it's the same explanation. That's my rough evolutionary explanation. So, given that evolution allows, or possibly even selects for it, given that there's like a biological reason for homosexual tendencies in a human being, why is there a cultural tendency to push against it, right? Like, if evolution supports it, why would culture not support it? This is confusing to me, right? Like, this is very confusing. And so that's kind of what I'm exploring today. So I'm talking about why does this exist? And again, I really don't think that the answer is just as simple. You know, if you ask the average LGBT activist, hey, why does homophobia exist? They're going to be like, oh, because of evil, because of bigotry, you know, which is like the dumbest explanation, because that's like the same thing as, you know, you're basically asking, hey, why do people kill each other? And then somebody says, because of Satan, obviously, because the devil exists, you know, and it's like, okay, that's fine. If that's your answer, okay, end of conversation, done. You've answered it, we're done here, we can pack it up, we can go home. You know, like, that doesn't satisfy me as an answer, you know? And so the same thing with homophobia. I don't buy the answer that it's simply evil, you know? I believe that it's there for a good reason. And I want to understand that reason. I really do. Really, really do. And nobody else seems to be talking about it, so. Anyway, I was thinking about attacking it from this angle here. So porn. Imagine porn. Access to porn, as we currently know it, is very new. So this is something that culture hasn't had time to adapt to yet. I'm talking like internet porn, you know, the availability of like 1 billion pictures of naked women that I can just get at any point in my life. That's new, and we don't have cultural norms around it yet. You know, we don't have like 1,000 years of cultural response to porn. Like, I'm sure porn has existed in some form, but never like this. Never available to anybody with a smartphone at this scale, you know? And we're seeing negative consequences of that. With porn addictions are probably, I mean, it's funny, you read about these scientists who try to study this and they can't find men who don't watch porn. They can't, it's like hard for them to find. It seems like most men at least watch it to some degree, and a lot of men probably watch it way too much. And it's affecting us in a lot of negative ways. And I don't want to talk about that too much, but what I'm trying to say is that men have trouble controlling their sexual urges, their sexual desires. And I understand this. As a man, I get it. It's nearly impossible to resist porn. It's like nearly impossible. It just, you know, go to the Reddit page NoFap and just try and see the lengths that people will go to you know, you basically have to become a monk in a way. You have to distract yourself, you have to work on something else. It's tricky to avoid porn. And I'm thinking that the same internal human, you know, humans have a nature, and we have this desire to reproduce, a desire to fuck, you know, and so this urge takes over our brains. It controls us in a certain way, you know, like we are creatures with free will, rational beings who can do what we want, but we are controlled by our internal desires quite a bit. And I think that we rationalize it. So there will be an internal behavior. There will be a behavior that we exhibit without really thinking about it, you know? Like, we'll do something, and then I think we will rationalize it in our brains either as we're doing it or after we do it. Like, we'll come up with a reason why we did it, but truly we just did it because we're animals and we're just following our animalistic instincts. And so the same thing, I think, happens with gay men. And so I want to explain this a little bit. So In the same way that men have trouble resisting porn today because it's so accessible, I believe that men who are homosexual have trouble resisting sex with other men. Because it's so accessible. And so let me explain this a little bit. If I were to go to Los Angeles today's Saturday, and I were to try to get a girl to come home with me, for some casual sex, my odds of success are not high. They're much lower than I would want. I'm not going to have a very high success rate. I've tried my best, and I only get to a certain percentage of success out of 7 nights a week. Who knows how many nights I would be successful if I tried something like this. However, if I were to go to Los Angeles tonight and try to get a gay man to come home with me, my success rate would be, I would say, 10 times higher, if not more than that. It would be much, much higher. I could probably, out of 7 nights, get a new person to come home with me every single night of the week. So why is this? Well, it's because it's just much, much easier to find a casual sexual encounter if you're gay, a gay man, than if you're a straight man. Because of the way men and women are built differently. Like, if I'm going to seek the affections of women, there's going to be a limit. Women are going to not be as ready for it as gay men. Like I've said this in previous videos, I just walk into a gay bar and scoop a guy out of there and bring him home, and it's like accessible to me. Accessible. It's very accessible in the same way that porn's accessible. And so I think that we have this problem as men. We can't resist it. When it's accessible right there, it's a problem. It causes an addiction the same way that you have a porn addiction or a drug addiction. And so this is my explanation for homophobia, at least right now. This is my guess. It's that, unlike porn that we have today, gay men have always existed across all of culture. So culture has had a long time to respond to this. Tens of thousands of years, arguably. And so I think that's why it's written down in the Bible. I think that culture, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, creates rules and norms to kind of control the behavior. Because imagine, again, go back to these 2 tribes. And I know this is a very oversimplified example, but I'm just trying to illustrate what I'm thinking about here. Imagine you have the one tribe that's very accepting of gay men, right? Suddenly, you get like the West Hollywood effect, right? Where it does become accessible to every gay man all the time. Where gay men can have sex every single night with a new guy. If they wanted to. And that's just available. And so I think what happens is you get this unhealthy behavior that occurs, Not even talking about STDs, Because, it's pretty clear that STDs, vaginas are designed for a penis in a way that a butthole is not, And it would not surprise me at all if STDs transfer through anal sex far more frequently than through vaginal sex. But that's almost an aside point. Like, even if STDs weren't an issue at all, which they might not have been in the past, who knows? If you only have like 100 people in a group and you're kind of isolated. Anyway, I don't want to talk about STDs. Let's say that that's not an issue. You would still have an issue of the gay men in your society having an addiction to sex that's not healthy, I would think. It might... Let me backtrack. I lost what I was talking about here. I shouldn't have talked about STDs. So you have 2 societies, one that's accepting, one that's not homophobic, and one that is homophobic. Why is it that we find more homophobic societies than non-homophobic societies, right? So I think it has something to do with men's inability to control themselves, right? Whether you're gay or straight. We have trouble controlling our sexual behavior. And it's possible, I would guess, like, this is kind of my hypothesis right now. This is a guess. I'm not saying this confidently. I'm sort of just trying to say that it's possible that the homophobia needs to exist as some sort of control over sexual behavior. And that's why it's written down in the Bible. That's why it's a theme across all of history. I sort of lost what I was talking about here. I'm probably gonna end this video now. I think I got close enough. Yeah, I don't think it's simply insecurity from straight men that causes a societal level of homophobia. I don't think that's it. I really don't. And I don't think it's like a simple disgust reaction. I talked about that yesterday. I don't want to go back over that. I think it has a lot more to do with like guardrails put up by society. And I wonder, looking around today, what is happening right now, what is going to happen as we, I think what we're doing today is like wildly different than any previous culture for a lot of reasons. Ubu, U-B-U-U, I don't know how to pronounce that YouTuber's name, has been responding to my comments, or has been writing comments in response to my videos, which are pretty lengthy. Well, they're written out, they're thought out. And he said, or she, I don't know, that, I think it's he, he said, I'm a reactionary liberal, and he said that society has been changing always. Like, there has never been a stable state. But I'm going to disagree. I got to push back on that a little bit. I think a lot of societies, especially the very traditional societies, have remained stable for like hundreds or thousands of years. They've remained more or less the same across a long period of time. And that's something that we want. Like, I would rather live in a society that is stable across 1,000 years than live in the society that's like a flash in the pan, And I am looking at our current society, and it seems like, whatever we're doing, we are changing so rapidly that it's clearly dangerous, right? It's clearly, we are playing with some fire here, and maybe we're headed in a great direction. Maybe we're just a couple years away or decades away from like a really beautiful golden age society, Maybe this is part of the transformation process, the metamorphosis. Like, I understand the goal of the LGBT thing, like the goal of like the woke people, the people that are trying to push this. It's an admirable goal if you look into it in good faith, if you give them the benefit of the doubt. They want a future of just freedom where everybody has like free sexual expression and you can just, I understand the intention, but I worry about this idea of taking away the guardrails. Like, we need norms and we need rules and we need, like, there's been repression on sexual behavior for a long time, for thousands of years. And like, maybe we remove these guardrails at our own peril. Maybe that's what's happening, because I keep looking around today and like, it's hard for me to tell if society's healthy. Like, I don't even know if you can say yes or no to that. But I wonder if what we're doing is right. Which is part of the reason I'm talking about it. I just want to explore this idea. Okay, let me just take a second, make sure there's nothing else I want to say. Let me go over what I said. Yeah, there's a reason for homophobia, and it might be a really good reason. It might be. Just wait till I make a video about race and one about sex. By sex, I mean like men and women. I'm going to have to take some non-mainstream stances on that as well. those are going to be even more spicy. And when I put those up, it's going to cause me even more stress. Those are coming. I'm also going to put up more videos of the house, and I still got to make one about the van. I haven't done that yet. You know, this channel is like a ridiculous YouTube channel. It's, I'm just making it up as I go along. Who knows what I'm going to talk about tomorrow? I don't even know. No plan, and that's the goal. No plan. Okay. I'm done. Bye.